go ahead and hit record for those of us who can't be here in person. So welcome everyone to our first ever virtual BenefacTour. We are so grateful to the Auburn Interfaith Closet for being the first to give this a try. And we're grateful to all of you for taking some time today to be with us. So today we're going to hear about the Food Closets program, recent outcomes, what's exciting, and what the needs are. You'll have the opportunity to meet some key leadership here on the screen and ask questions about their program, their fundraising, and their needs. I'll let people in too as we go here. So you'll leave with an insider understanding of the nonprofit. We're going to hear a presentation here shortly, and then you'll have the opportunity to ask questions. I will be monitoring the chat box, so please feel free to drop your questions in there and I'll keep an eye on that. And let's see what else I have to share with you. So you can ask your questions. If you're having any technical difficulties, just give me a holler. And if you want to keep yourself muted while the presentation is happening, we were talking about pets interrupting. So if you've got any critters in the background, if you want to keep yourself muted, but at the end, if we're doing Q&A and you'd like to speak directly, you can just let me know in the chat and we can get you unmuted. But with that, I am going to pass it over to Sandy Bassett, President of the Board of Directors, and Andy Hayes, Vice President and Chair of the Fundraising Committee. So Sandy and Andy, please take it away. Thank you.
Well, let me say thank you so much for having all of us. And we so greatly appreciate all of you. We have a few of our executive team here, but I see some of you are even our volunteers. So we want to thank you for that. But the PCF has been a supporter of the Food Closet for as long as I can remember. And you helped us do key things like buy big equipment that we couldn't buy before. But I think we have, and we share some of the common goals that we want to make life better for those in our community. And that's what we're about. We just focus on one area. You focus on a lot of areas, which is a great thing. But let me introduce to you our executive team. Of course, you've heard Andy Hayes. He's the Vice President and Chairman of our fundraising. And he is an expert at fundraising, which some of you probably already know. But we have Sharon Furlong. She's kind of there. She's waving her hand. She is our operations manager. And so she is a key player in the Food Closet. And we have Judy Whitman, which you may not know. There she is. Okay. People move around on this screen. And Judy Whitman is new to the Food Closet. She's chairing now our Food Resources Committee. And she was a person who came along and said, you know, I'd like to help volunteer. And she was so interested in it. We said, well, would you like to do food resources? Oh yeah, I would. So we love volunteers who are willing to come and take on more. And Judy is one of those. And so some of you are our volunteers. Isabel is Andy's wife, but she's also our graphic artist. And so she does a lot of work for us. And she also is heavily involved in our homebound senior delivery program. And so Andy will be telling you more about that. And so Bill and Barbara Tillman, you help us every week or every other week. I'm not sure how often it is. And Perry Edwards, he's the guy I go to when I can't figure out how to make the computer work. So Perry, thank you very much for that. I think I've covered all of the people that I know that are volunteering. I don't know all our volunteers. So we have over 200 and some volunteers. So if I missed you, I'm sorry. But Andy has gone to a lot of work to prepare a presentation. And he's going to share that with you. And at the end, he'll give you the opportunity to ask whatever questions you might have. But when you leave, it's our hope you're going to be an insider about the Food Closet, that you'll know what we know. And so thank you for having us. So Andy.
Thank you very much, Sandy. The goal, as Sandy pointed out, is to try and give you pertinent information about our mission and our organization. We've been in the Auburn area for 22 years, and we started in the upper left-hand corner as a cupboard in St. Luke's basement. And that's where they kept the food for their little food pantry. But 22 years ago, 5 of the churches in the area got together and decided that they could do something bigger and bolder. And the Auburn Interfaith Food Closet was formed and a nonprofit existed. The first major facility we had was what's now the DeWitt Museum on the DeWitt campus. That was outgrown for a variety of reasons, and we are currently housed in an industrial area over by the airport, just behind Moonrakers, if some of you know where that might be. But the picture on the right is what we're working on right now, which is our own building, and we expect, we'll talk more about that, but occupancy towards end of sometime late March. So as I mentioned, we're really, Interfaith is part of our name. And in fact, there are 17 churches in faith-based communities in the area who in some way are supporting us. Oftentimes, most of our volunteers come from these communities, but in addition, these are people who support us by collecting food, by providing board members. And these pictures are going to be part of paver bricks that will actually be arrayed at our front entrance at the new facility once we get done. So we double purpose those, but we are not demanding of people to be faith-based in coming to us or to be volunteers, but it is in our DNA. We serve, I typically describe us as serving Central Placer County. The zip codes between Loomis and Emigrant Gap, Applegate, Forest Hill, Colfax, Auburn are the ones that make up our service community. And if an individual lives in those zip codes, they are eligible to come to us if they choose once every 30 days. We do note how many people are in the household, and we give out sufficient food to each visit. So each one of those people gets 3 days of food or 9 meals of food. So it scales. If you have a family of 5, you get a lot more food than if it's a single person. You can see our mission statement, which is that we're going to provide nutritious food, preserve its dignity, and encourage people for self-reliance. We don't try and understand why they need to come to us. We realize that it's an effort on their part to come, and sometimes even embarrassing, and so we don't want to, dig into that. And as one of my volunteers reminds me, their coming to us gives us the opportunity to serve, and there's a benefit to us in the process. We're robust. We've been blessed by volunteers to the extent we don't have to hire anybody. We're 100% volunteer. So most of us are retired. And I'm going to use 2019 data quite a bit in this presentation for the moment, simply because that was a normal year. 2020 data is just perturbed, to put it mildly. But in 2019, we had over, as Sandy said earlier, we have over 200 volunteers who gave time, and over 26,000 hours were recorded. Our board of directors is made up by individuals from our supporting churches primarily, although we do have some people who fill key positions and are on the board outside of that. Each of our faith communities is allowed to have up to 3 people assigned. And our goal with our board directors is not just to have people come to a meeting once a month, but to actually dig in and be part of the working core leadership, run committees, take some of the key action. In many cases, they're in the back also volunteering. Our 2021 budget is representative of what it's been in past years, and this is the operations budget, so it doesn't include costs of the building projects or other things that are capital based, but it's about $530,000 a year. On the income side, almost 60% of our is donations that come in the form of food, either directly from Placer Food Bank or from the community through food drives. The remaining part is then made up of monetary income. Some of that comes from individuals donating money on a regular basis, or writing a check, or in some cases recently signing over their stimulus checks to us. They don't need it and they think maybe we could. We do have some fundraising programs, and then we do write some grants. And so that kind of is how we collect our money. And the way it goes out of our building is almost 80% of it is in food items, which is not surprising. That's our core mission. The building expenses and operating expenses, utilities make up about 12%, and then about 10% is administrative overhead, of which less than 5% of it is for fundraising purposes. So, if you look at nonprofits as a whole, and you look at the things that are direct client services, 90% on this chart is saying 90% of our expenses are direct client services, either to support the operations or in the food we give out to our clients. Sorry. We have two service models, the way people receive food from us. One of them is we are open Monday to Friday and the last Saturday of the month for 4 hours, middle of the day. And the people then come to us either by drive or ride or by public transportation or walk. But that we're there. And we purposely make sure our facility is near public transportation. The place in Earhart, we actually worked with Placer Transportation to get a bus stop put out front of us. The new facility, it turns out there was run already in place right in front of Starbucks. Amazing. But that was a critical part of as we look for places, because we do know that we want to be available for people who don't have the luxury of their own transportation. If you look at our mix, it's interesting that less than 8% of our population that comes to us is homeless. The people that are homeless will typically come every month. About 10% are seniors. And part of the reason it's such a low percentage is because seniors in many cases have fixed income already, so they are in good shape. In fact, many of the people with pandemic have done well because they have fixed income and they didn't need to have other ways to augment their income. But the other is some of the seniors in our community are living in facilities that have food. So they don't need something like us. But we'll come back to it in a minute. Or on the homebound program, some of these people also though are struggling on their own and need help, and that's where our second program came. About a quarter of the people who come to us are youth under 17. And then in that they are represented by their parents coming to us. And so probably 75% of the total population that is coming to us is intact family units coming for food. It's really easy to imagine that everybody that we have comes every month. The fact is that's not the case. On average, a family comes to us about 3.5 times a year. And there's a significant percentage that come to us once and that's it. Our view is these are people who are in our community that in many cases have a budget that works most months, but when they're in trouble, they do come. An example that wouldn't be thought of is August. August is often a heavy month for the families that have children in school because they need back to school supplies and new clothes and other things, and that shorts their budget for that month. So not surprising in that case that they might come, because we can give them a stretch of about $60 into their budget that can be applied elsewhere. In 2019, we wrote a grant through Project Go that they did provide to allow us to start a home delivery program. The target would be the homebound seniors who couldn't get to us because they don't have transportation, or the transportation they might have couldn't get to us during our normal operating hours. The target is for households that are living under 2 times poverty level, which is it's $2,000 a month for a family of 2, some less than that for a single. But the key is they're unable to come. We thought we could probably identify 30 individuals and deliveries. We started last year about this time. This last month, we had over 75 individuals participate in this program. And even though we call it a senior program, the fact is that age is not a requirement. It really is poverty and inability to get to us. We do, and we're always recruiting for this program. We do need people to come to us and self-declare their need to be in it, because but it's, and we'll talk more about how you can help us in that regard. Here's, again, looking at 2019 data, just to give you a sense. 7,200 families came in 2019. If you remember that small building over at the DeWitt Center, in 2011, that was a high watermark where the economy was really bad. We had 1,200 families a month coming at that point. But last year in Placer County, we had under 3% unemployment, and we still had this many families suffering from food insecurity. Most of these people with income, but not enough to meet all their budgets meet. And you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, just an example of what a typical family of 4 basket would look like. 2020, as I mentioned, had a little visitor. Our COVID friend showed up. And as I mentioned, we were designated an essential business by Placer County. To that end, we had to find a way to stay open, but protect 2 different audiences. First, we had to protect our clients from each other and from us in transmission, but also our volunteer pool is all in what's designated as the high-risk population, and many of our volunteers also had pre-existing conditions. And so part of our transition had to be find a way to serve our clients and protect our volunteers. We were able to turn around our operations in a day. It happened to be a Thursday, and the Thursday team did a really good job. But in the past, we had people would come in and register in a room and have access to some resources and wait for their food. The flip was we now service them out at their car. So we have volunteers that walk out to the parking lot, greet them, take information, come back in, work through the registration process. Once we know they're eligible, walks back out, as you can see in the picture, slips a piece of paper under the windshield wiper. They can drive around to the back of the building, and then we fill the car with the food in the back of the building. So we went from walk in to drive up in a day. We have seen a loss in some of our volunteers, and some of that is because some of our volunteers, knowing they had pre-existing conditions, had to basically say, I can't do it at this time. So we also, in our transition, changed the way we operated inside so that instead of being as much labor intensive, we are now pre-packing a lot of our food so it's ready to go off the shelf, and so we can service somebody with fewer volunteers and a little bit quicker. Back in April and May last year, we did have some supply issues. Prices went up for a while. Eggs became 2 to 3 times expensive. And it wasn't because the chickens weren't laying the eggs, it's because the eggs weren't getting from the chickens to us. And so we had some increases. Another one of our major inputs was the donation bins at the back of the sanctuaries of our churches, and people, when they would come to service on Sunday, would bring food in. As the churches in the area have not been able to hold in-person meetings, that supply chain slowed down some, but it's started to pick up. Some people have been doing a lot of other things, and the Placer Food Bank has had a lot of influx of more food coming into it from a variety of sources, and they've been turning around and passing out, and have been a wonderful source of helping us meet our needs this year. Many of you, I'm sure, on the news have seen pictures of food banks in other parts where there are lines of cars out the door around the corner and people desperately needing it. That hasn't been our experience. And we think there's several reasons for that. But just statistically, the homeless basically became taken care of by the county. So they opened new shelters as an immediate response. And in those new shelters, they would serve 3 meals a day. So the homeless that had been coming for us suddenly were serviced in a different way. But we also saw, after April last year, a reduction in the annual, the average family visits by about 1/4. That was somewhat offset, though, by the fact that the number of people in each household has gone up. And I do think several things are driving it. One of them is I think there was consolidation of households. So we would have counted, let's say a child went off to college and they came to us, we would have counted them as a different family unit from their own, but when they move back in, now it's one family unit. But I think the other thing is that we may have seen people move out of our area as they had to go back home or to do something else. And so not sure of all the dynamics in there. We have seen about a 20% increase each month in the new client registrations, which suggests that there are people at the margin who are coming to us that weren't in the past. But we're just going to have to wait and see how this all plays out. Another thing that happened this year, which is great for us, is that we've now seen by the end of the year a massive increase in the dollar donations we received, and as well through Placer Food Bank, the food. Several of these things have been agency driven. Unbeknownst to us, in April, Placer Community Foundation created a COVID fund. And we first learned about that the day they told us we were one of the awardees of the first distributions from that. And it's just that, leadership that is, I can't tell you how much this your organization has been a leader to us and this community. We've seen programs like the SHARES program that the county has gotten through their grants from the federal government. And again, an indication of the value the Placer Community Foundation has is that it's the organization that's been managing two of these on behalf of the county and done a very effective job in doing so. We've seen a number of the civic organizations in town realize that they can do things that and help out in places that needed to help, and we've been a beneficiary of those because the imagination is that there are people that are going to go hungry as the economy is disrupted. But we've also seen increase in donations from individuals. We've had people who back in the spring don't need the stimulus check, and if they kept it, would go in their bank accounts, which isn't stimulating anything. And many of them said we can pass it on to you or some of the other nonprofits in the area. The total number of people who donated money to us in 2020 was twice as many as we'd had any other year. And so it's been and part of that is also they were aware we're working on the building and that was going to cost money. And so, but a lot of people have stepped forward, a number of businesses have. Some of our outside grant agencies in the past, we couldn't even get them to look at grants, have said, what can we do to help you? And so it's been a very good year for that standpoint. I don't have my little virus picture on this one, but not only we have COVID, we also had a building work on. And so 2020 was memorable and momentous. We got our county approvals for plans in February. We were able to send out for bid in March. We were able to open the bids in May. We awarded in June, and we broke ground in July. You can see 5 different pictures of progress from July through January. We still don't have a paved parking lot, but it's coming very soon. But if you go inside now, the walls are painted and the last pieces are going in. We're probably 6 weeks away from being in position to make the move. And it's been a long time coming. Just to give you an overview of what that happened, our mortgages through the United States Department of Agriculture, the Rural Development Program that's based in Davis, has an excellent program of helping support key groups in the area for development and recovery. We learned of them through the Grass Valley Food Closet when they did a rehab. A 40-year mortgage at 2.25%. When we started this program, I would have been happy to have anything under 4%. Now I'm locked in at 2.25%, and I wish I could be under 2%, but it is what it is. But the reality is the monthly expense for us to service that is actually going to be less than the rent we are currently paying. So that is an operational improvement. Between our capital campaign and other monies, we were able to raise enough, another 1.1 million to secure the land and to do all the other costs of this. So We are ourselves a $1.9 million stimulus for Placer County with this building. We also, when we did this, had a wish list of other things we wanted to do: build out the kitchen, get a solar system, improve our inventory management. And as we've moved forward, we've realized that we could appeal to the community for things to do this, and have done so. One of those was solar, and I approached Eileen about that about 4 months ago, saying, is it possible that some of the funds there could be interested in helping support that? And I think it's $9,000 was committed towards our goal of $60,000 in that. We have raised that money, and solar is going to go on the building. It's going to be added on just after we finish the construction and close the paperwork on that. But that's going to reduce our operating costs by $800 to $1,000 a month too. So again, this whole program and the support of the community has made it possible for us to not only put this facility in place, but to also improve our operating positions, so that as we go forward over the next years, we can make sure we're there, because I don't anticipate we're ever not going to be needed in our community. I want to again recognize, as Sandy did in her introduction, just how important Placer Community Foundation has been for us. Since 2008, at various times, funds from Placer Community Foundation have contributed to us. And as of a few weeks ago, the total amount of money that's flowed to us is just under $160,000. You can see a lot of that is COVID in the, the monies that came through the shares program, but also just in the last 3 years when we announced the capital campaign, managers of the funds at the foundation have really stepped up and helped us make a difference. And you don't understand, just to make you understand, it's much easier as a fundraiser to go and talk to other people about giving if you've already had people give. And so the stimulus of being able to talk about the community foundation, having bought in and said, yes, we believe in what you're doing, made it so much easier for us to raise the monies from those other organizations and individuals. And just to appropriately recognize the various funds and what's been done over the years, for those of you that are close and familiar with the foundation, many of these funds. You can go online and see the bios of them and their stories of why they're there. And then the general community funds has been important too. And then you can see at the bottom, the last three, these are the funds that came up as a COVID response world. So again, much thanks. I think it's important also, though, to recognize that the foundation is to us much more than about money. Eileen has been a fixture in the nonprofit communities in our area as a coordinator and a liaison. I'm on it's now bi-weekly phone call with other nonprofits, but we get together, we're touch base, we're networking, and this leadership from the Community Foundation has nurtured our nonprofit community. I know the people in the leaders in these other nonprofits, and we can network with them, we can share experiences, we can talk with each other, we can commiserate with each other, but this is a value that I think shouldn't be lost on you who are possible donors and supporters of the Community Foundation. This is a jewel that you bring to us. So what can you do for us? One is just, you're doing great, keep it up. And individually, in your home, in your neighborhood, in your families, if you know or think someone might be hungry, don't be afraid to tell them about us. It's, for many people in our community, for them to have to come and ask food from us is an embarrassment. It is they grow up believing they should be self-sufficient, bootstrap themselves up, depend on no one. And when they need help, it's embarrassing. They're almost afraid. They want to come in with a paper bag over their head. Isabel had a gentleman a couple of weeks ago in an older Mercedes in a parking lot who lost his job, lost his family, has no money. He's never had to ask for help, and so it's very difficult. If you suspect that there's someone who might be qualified for our home delivery program, let them know about us and have them contact us if they're interested. I think they'll find it a wonderful opportunity. And it's more than just bringing them food. For many of these people, because they're so isolated, we become a social contact for them by the phone calls to prepare to bring them and the people who come and bring the food to their houses. And that is a welcome benefit to these people who are otherwise very isolated. You also may hear people who speak negatively about social services and social justice and needs in supporting the community. And a lot of these people have never walked in the shoes of a hungry person, or they don't know one personally. And if they don't experience in their own family, they can be pretty negative. Don't be afraid to talk about helping others as a noble cause, or a religious cause, or a moral cause. Those are the things that can help us above and beyond the things that you normally would think you're doing for us. With that, I want to turn it back over to Eileen for questions, but I have to say that, it's a wonderful partnership. We truly cherish the relationships, and we look forward to making you proud to support us, and we're enjoy very much working with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy, for your presentation. Round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. We're so grateful for your time and everything that all of your leadership does to serve our community at a really challenging time in the world. And to see all that you've accomplished despite that is even more impressive. So thank you very much for everything. I would love to open it up to questions if people would like to unmute themselves, or you want to put them in the chat. I'm sure that they would be happy to answer anything else that you're wondering about.
I did have a question about the various buildings that were shown and the map, that was shown. And one of them looked like a building in Loomis. I live in Loomis. And it looks like the yoga building. Am I right? Or
no, those are all up in Auburn. The one is on the DeWitt Center, just behind the Home Depot in Auburn. The other's over by the food closet, and the new one we're building is right next at the Forest Hill exit on I-80.
All right, great, thank you.
I just have a comment, and I'm very impressed with how far you've gotten so quickly with the new building, and really pleased to hear about you're espousing the collaborations that are going on, because from where we sit looking at who's working together, we know there's a lot of collaboration that can happen, and it really does accelerate things and amplifies the good that's going on. So keep it up from our standpoint.
I had a question. How are you, since there have been a significant number of resources that have come in because of the pandemic, how are you thinking about the future and potential loss of that kind of support?
Well, as the head of fundraising, I can't get more gray hair because I'd already gone there. It's interesting that our operating budget is basically no different than it was before the pandemic. We're very successful in meeting our annual budgetary needs, even without going out and doing heroic fundraising things. So I think we're going to go back to pretty much the same. One thing we have also done, though, is we have created what we call an emergency fund. Sandy will tell the story before I showed up, that back in 2011, when the last crisis occurred, there was a risk that the organization had to shut down because it became impoverished and didn't have enough. And what we did decide to do then, and we actually have enabled this year, is we've identified an emergency fund that would allow us to go 6 months without any income and be able to meet our client and meet 50% more clients. So it's just, formalistically, that's what we did. But the goal was that we could buy 6 months of time to engage the community to help us more if and when we got to that crisis. So, if suddenly the spigot's turned off, we can survive till we can get the spigot back on.
It's very impressive.
I have a question, Andy, on the slide that talked about the solar and the kitchen. And I wondered, is there anything happening with the kitchen, or is that a future project?
6 weeks from now, when we open, the kitchen will actually be fully baked. It will have a 2-chamber convection oven and burners, and we will be able to start classes. One of the things we want to do, and be available for community organizations that may want to, build, cook big meals for congregants, such as for gathering in or something else like that. So we can be one more resource in the community for things like that. We're not planning to be a catering kitchen. We're not aiming to serve meals to our clients. It's really there for other purposes, but it will be fully built out at the beginning.
Well, and the goal is to teach our clients how to fix the food that we give to them, because many of the comments we receive are, well, what am I supposed to do with this? Or I don't like that. I don't want to have that because I don't know how to fix it. So we're trying to get them to branch out and learn to fix things that they're not used to fixing. But I do want to add a comment. When we went into this building project, we went into it with the idea that we would build the infrastructure for a future commercial kitchen. I think that's what Barbara is remembering. And we did that because we didn't know if we would have the money to fully outfit the kitchen. We also knew that one day we wanted to have solar, but we didn't go into the building project to fund solar because we knew, or we felt like we wouldn't have enough funds for that. Our primary goal was, let's get the building built, then we'll worry about those other things. Well, the community response has been so great, and you have been so great, that we have donations specifically to fund the kitchen that fully fund all of the equipment, all the utensils, everything we could need for the kitchen. We got donations that fully fund the solar equipment. And Andy didn't go into too much details, but one of Andy's prime projects that he has wanted to do ever since day one was have a conveyor system that we could put our storage of food on rollers so that we could achieve our goal of giving out first in, first out, give out the things we had the longest, give them out first. And our system now, we just stack them on pallets. And lo and behold, the bottom crate probably is the last one to be given out, which is not what we want to accomplish. Well, I have to tell you that Placer Shares grant fully funded that conveyor system. So you made Andy very, very happy. So I think he got a gray hair back. But we have ordered that conveyor system, and it will be here somewhere middle of March or maybe the end of March. The oven and everything is going to come the middle of March. The only thing that will be a little later will be the solar system. And so, we feel like we've really been blessed. It's like, we couldn't hardly ask enough because we didn't have faith enough to think that it was going to happen, but here it comes. This has been a community effort with the community and with the Community Foundation and with all of our partners. And so we are greatly appreciative and we feel really blessed. So thank you for that.
there any other questions at this point? Oh, Vicky, please. Oh, Vicky, you're muted.
There we go. Thank you. Too much tech. So if a client needs food, and how would they know whether to call you or the food bank? You know, we've got several groups out there providing food.
Oh, okay.
And
Well, actually, the food bank is, the Placer Food Bank is in Roseville,
Right.
and they are like a wholesale agency. They provide food to the other food pantries or food closets. So they should not call the food bank in Roseville. But there are several agencies in Auburn that they could call. They could call us, they could call the Salvation Army, they could call the Adventist Community Services. And then there is a Sierra Reach program at Applegate. They closed for COVID, so I don't know if they're still open or not. But we are fortunate enough, we have several agencies who will provide food in Auburn area. So, and there's also the Friendly Neighbors in Meta Vista. So there are plenty of opportunities. We, of course, would like to encourage them to come to us. One of the goals that we have, and I think we do, of course, I'm talking because I'm proud of what we do. We make it a point that we give the healthy food that's laid out by the guidelines of the USDA, that how much protein they need, how much grains they need, how much dairy they need. We meet all of their guidelines with the exception of dairy. And sometimes we even can meet dairy because it's donated to us. There's a company that's donating yogurt to us now. We couldn't afford to buy it, but every week they're donating yogurt to us. And sometimes we get cheese from the Placer Food Bank. So while I say we don't meet the dairy requirements, we don't always meet the dairy requirements, but all the others we do. Not all the agencies do that. So we don't mind if they go to other agencies too, but we think they should come to us because we think we do a good job.
Vicky, one of the things, and Isabella's got her hand up, but we have resource materials that we will give to clients about all the other agencies that might be of use to them. And we're not mutually exclusive. So we know that there's some people that the 3 days worth of food we give them isn't going to be enough. So we hand out to them the other agencies that they could go to if they need to. So it's they come to us. My wife Isabel is this is one of her pet areas of the resource information to help our clients connect with other people.
so if they're eligible for WIC or it's not food stamps anymore, CalFresh, you got referral information for them for that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I would like to add, Vicky, that in Placer County, there is a wonderful tool called 211
Yes.
that was implemented a few months ago. And we are listed there, but not just us. So if you know of anyone who says, I need food, I don't know where to start, you say, go to 211 either on the phone or on the website, and then look at food banks. And depending on where you live, they will show a map. And then each of the agencies that can provide food is listed with their conditions, what they do when they are open, and we are listed there. There is also another tool called Aunt Bertha. This is managed by Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield. And there are other places too, where if people need food, they can type food bank in their search engine on their phone or on their computer, and they will be able to know where those resources are. But like Sandy said, we would love to have them come to us because we give really healthy food, fresh vegetables, fresh fruit, milk, eggs, those kind of things.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions at this point? Well, seeing none, I will wrap it up here. Thank you all so much for joining us, and to the Auburn Interfaith Food Closet for hosting today. We're so appreciative for all of the really good information. Please keep an eye out for a follow-up email, which I'll be sending out with a survey. Let us know what you thought. This was our first go, so please share your thoughts. If there are other nonprofits you would love to hear from, I'm open, so let me know. And I also, if it's okay, Sandy and Andy, I'll include your email addresses. So if people have additional questions, they can follow up with you as well. But I hope that you all take good care. So good to see your faces. And we've got some other visits in the works, so I'll be sure to share those dates once we've got them. So thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
And
Take care.
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Kathy.
Bye-bye.
Hmm.